We need to talk about toxic femininity in the church. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Isabella Cameron, and if you want to see more from me, please join my Patreon. I'll have it linked in the description or a QR code on the screen. If you want to see more behind the scenes of me, some special content, and Ask Isabella section weekly where I answer your questions, and a monthly book club, it'll all be on my Patreon. And the link to my new hats is in the description on my Shopify store, and it'll be linked in my Patreon. So you can get your very own Bad for the Brand hat before they sell out. So I don't know if you guys have seen this, but there's this influencer online. Her name is SJ Blue. She just got married, and she's a Christian influencer who's been online for a long time. And she posted this video about learning to cook and how she wanted to cook for her husband, and that she's stepping into this new role as a wife, and that part of the way she wants to be a wife is by learning how to cook. And I'll show you the video because she used this phrase, stepping into the role she was created to be in, and people were in uproar. So let me show you the video.
I've never felt comfortable in the kitchen, and I always dreaded cooking because I thought I just wasn't good at it. But I actually just never gave it a try. But lately I've been wanting to change that. I'm making lasagna soup. I want to learn and I want to get comfortable making recipes for my family. It's not just about me needing to be in the kitchen, but I actually want to be in the kitchen. I want to step into the role that I was created to be, and I don't want to be anxious about cooking.
So there's like a little clip. Basically, the whole time she's talking about how she doesn't really know how to cook. She wants to be able to serve her husband, and that one of the ways she wants to do that is by cooking. But by saying that she's stepping into the role that she was created to be in, people have been freaking out. And I think it's a little ridiculous, to be honest. But it had me thinking on like, okay, maybe it's a conversation that needs to be had, is like, what is a role of a wife supposed to be, especially when today it's a lot less traditional than it was. Like back then, when this was written, women weren't really allowed to work. Like they weren't allowed to hold a job. Or like, what does it look like if both you and your husband or vice versa are working 9 to 5s? Like you're both working the same amount, 40 hours. Does it still fall on the woman to like cook everything? Like what is that even supposed to look like? And this is something that I personally like struggled with a lot in 2020 when I was praying over like the new year. I felt like God put on my heart and my mom's heart that I should be praying about like moving into eventually becoming a wife. So I studied Proverbs 31, which I'll read for you. I am not the traditional wife type, and this is something that comes up a lot in conversation with like other couples or friends, where between me and my husband, he tends to do a little more of the cooking. He enjoys that more. We both work full-time jobs, and I tend to be more of the like loud or dominant personality type, wherein a lot of other Christian couples that I see, it tends to be the opposite. And so it's like, okay, well, what does that look like? Does that mean I need to change my personality? Or does that mean that even though I'm working the same amount as him, do I still have to do all the cooking? Like, what is that even supposed to look like? And how do I honor God while still honoring like the character traits and the personality that he gave me? And at least for SJ, I think it's really honorable that she wants to learn how to cook, and that's a way that she wants to serve her husband. I think that's really sweet. And it's okay for women to want that. I think oftentimes in the comments, what I see is like, well, you're not allowed because then that's like toxic submission. And it's like, it's really not, as long as she's choosing that. Like if she's choosing she wants to serve her husband in that way, then we should applaud that. Like that's awesome. If she wanted to choose to serve her husband in a different way, then that's also great. Like it's all about serving the other person in marriage, not just for the woman to serve the husband, but for both. And you know, it says in the Bible that women are supposed to submit to their husbands, but husbands are supposed to love their wives like Jesus loves the church, sacrificially, like being willing to die for them. And we often harp on like, well, women are supposed to submit, but we forget the whole like, it's way more responsibility on the man, that they're supposed to lay down their life essentially, like, and have the most servant-hearted position. So in 2020, when I was like praying about eventually becoming a wife, I studied Proverbs 31. And this is tossed around the church a lot. It's like, you're supposed to be a Proverbs 31 woman. And it's like, okay, well, what does Proverbs 31 say? And the section on a wife is verses 10 through 31. And I'm going to read the whole thing for you and then kind of break down like what I've been thinking about it. And this is not like to like teach you necessarily, but just to share like this is what it has looked like in my life to try and be a Proverbs 31 woman, and like some of the misconceptions that I've been told of like, this is what you're supposed to be as a wife versus what the Bible actually says. And I'm hoping that this helps someone. So Proverbs 31, starting in verse 10. An excellent wife who can find? She is far more precious than jewels. The heart of her husband trusts in her, and he will have no lack of gain. She does him good and not harm all the days of her life. She seeks wool and flax and works with willing hands. She is like the ships of the merchant. She brings her food from afar. She rises while it is yet night and provides food for her household and portions for her maidens. She considers a field and buys it. With the fruit of her hands she plants a vineyard. She dresses herself with strength and makes her arms strong. She perceives that her merchandise is profitable. Her lamp does not go out at night. She puts her hands to the distaff and her hands hold the spindle. She opens her hand to the poor and reaches out her hands to the needy. She is not afraid of snow for her household, for all her household are clothed in scarlet. She makes bed coverings for herself. Her clothing is fine linen and purple. Her husband is known at the gates when he sits among the elders of the land. She makes linen garments and sells them. She delivers sashes to the merchant. Strength and dignity are her clothing, and she laughs at the time to come. She opens her mouth with wisdom, and the teaching of kindness is on her tongue. She looks well to the ways of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. Her children rise up and call her blessed. Her husband also, and he praises her. Many women have done excellently, but you surpass them all. Charm is deceitful and beauty is gain, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. Give her the fruits of her hands and let her work praise her in the gates. Okay. So, breaking this down, I kind of just made a list of like the traits of like what a Proverbs 31 woman is. I was going to kind of like go through them because that's what I do when I'm like, okay, I'm supposed to be this type of woman as a wife. So like, let me go through and see what I'm really supposed to be. Because like I said, I'm not the typical stay-at-home wife making sourdough all day. And I'm also not ready to pop out a bunch of children and be a stay-at-home mom or any type of mom. I don't want that for the next several years. So what does that look like to still be a wife when the church tends to tell you like your role as a Proverbs 31 wife is to, you know, serve your husband in everything that he does, to make all the food, be a sourdough mom, and pop out a bunch of children? No, that's great, but that's not what I want or what everybody else wants. So first thing that is listed is that she's trustworthy. That can look like anything. Just be a trustworthy person. Cool. She does good and not harm. That to me is what I think of when there's kind of this culture of like bashing your husband a little bit. And like not in the church or not just in the church, but in culture, I see a lot of like women who are super annoyed and mad at their husbands all the time and disrespect him like to other people. And there's one thing if you're like genuinely having issues and you're like talking it out with a girlfriend or like with your like another woman. That's fine to be like, yeah, I'm really irritated. I know it's not a big deal. I just kind of need to like vent and like move on. That's cool. But when you're like disrespecting your husband in front of a bunch of people, that's pretty much a no-go. Like, don't do that. And that's become kind of a thing where like the husbands have like the ball and chain at home where like the women are like, oh yeah, my husband's stupid and annoying. So disrespectful. So when you're doing good to your husband and not harm, that's kind of what I think of. And that this can go into like all different types of things of good and not harm, but that tends to be one that I think of. She works willingly and provides food for her household. Now this one is what people are like, well, you're supposed to cook for your husband. And I disagree because at the time when culturally, when this was written, women were not allowed to work. Their job was to be a wife. That doesn't mean that she didn't do things like I'll get into, like it said, you know, she sold stuff, she profits, she planted a vineyard, she did all these things. But part of her job was to cook for the family because the husband did not have time or ability to be able to do that because he was out fishing or doing a bunch of other stuff. And she works willingly to do that. Now we should have a servant's heart and a willing heart, but practically me and my husband both work 40 hours. I'm a hairstylist and I do this for my job. It's a full schedule the same way he has a full schedule. So generally, we kind of just split it. He enjoys baking, so he usually will like bake a treat once a week, and that's something that I don't do because I don't like it. And that's fine with both of us. We split our chores evenly, and there will be some weeks where I'm like, hey, I have so much going on. I might need you to pick up a little slack. Cool. Or if he's like, has a ton going on, I pick up a little slack. And it's just a partnership, right? So generally what will happen, it's different for every couple. For us, we usually work a lot of late nights or like don't get home till 7 or 8 p.m. because of our jobs. So we meal prep a lot of our stuff. Generally, we'll meal prep like for the whole week or at least 3 or 4 days at a time. And we'll like split that load. So it's like, okay, I'll take care of this, cooking this stuff. You take care of cooking this stuff and we get it done. Now, if I was in a position where I was working a lot less and I had the time to like cook a nice meal every night, I probably would because that would be nice. But getting home at 8 p.m. and then still being like, oh, I have to cook for my husband, that's just not realistic. And that's also not fair to say that like The wife has to take all of that because back then when it was a wife's job to do that, she had to. Like, that doesn't really translate anymore. Again, if you want to, awesome. If you want to serve and you want to get home and you enjoy cooking dinner for your family, that's amazing, and I'm so happy for you. That is not my story, and that is not practical for us in this season. Granted, later, 5-10 years down the road, if we have kids and I'm like working less and I want to be able to do that, that's awesome. It's just about compromising and being able to serve each other well. She is wise and strong and makes a profit from her work. Okay, what does it look like to be a wise wife? What does it look like to be a strong wife? Like, those are things that are generally, to me, just like being a Christian, like study the Bible and be in community, and like you will gain in strength and wisdom when you are walking with the Lord. Like, that's a natural byproduct of submitting your life to the Lord every day and taking up your cross and making a profit on your work. Like, people would use Proverbs 31 and be like women shouldn't work or they shouldn't profit on things, when it's like, no, girl, she worked. Like, the Proverbs 31 woman, she was out there doing stuff and she was making a profit. That doesn't mean that you have to make a profit on your work. Like, there are plenty of women who I know who are stay-at-home moms. That is work. And like, the profit is not financial profit, but the profit in that is raising up the next generation. Like, you are profiting off of that because your family is growing and succeeding and like doing well, and you're pouring into the next generation. That's still a profit. It doesn't have to be financial profit. Or there are plenty of retired married women who, like, since they're done and they're retired, they pour all their energy into serving the community or like helping out at church or helping out at all different types of nonprofits. Like, you're still profiting, just not financially. And mostly, to me, it's like, it says this later on, like, don't be idle. Like, even if you don't have to financially provide for the family, do something. Like, do something to be involved in the body of Christ and like serve other people, because when you zoom out, our whole role on this earth is to serve other people. So like, your first priority should be serving your household, like your family, and then serving the community. So whatever that looks like, great, do it. It says like, she's generous, she helps the poor and the needy, her household is prepared for all seasons. And this one, where it says like, she's not afraid of snow coming because her family is dressed in, I think it said scarlet. And that's basically just saying like, she has thought ahead to make sure that if something happens, like snow, we're all going to be warm and fed, right? And this is something that I wasn't really thinking about till I was putting this outline together. I think sometimes, I want to be careful how I say this because there's a positive and a negative to this. The way that God built women is to be able to think ahead and prepare for things. And I see this in a lot of women. Granted, there may be some that like, that's not their natural disposition. But most women that I know, especially like wives and mothers, they're constantly thinking ahead to being like, okay, how can I best prepare for my family? How can I like make sure that we have food for the next day? How can I make sure that they're going to be clothed for the winter? And like, they're thinking ahead. And sometimes what can happen that I have seen in marriages is that the women can get resentful to their husbands for not being the same way, of being like, why don't you think ahead for the family? And why don't you think ahead for this? And I think there is some of that absolutely where men just don't care. And that's where I think it becomes a negative, is like when the woman is carrying all of the mental load for everything, that is a problem. If like the husband is completely refusing to help or do anything. Huge problem, yes. But there is a level of that that's like, God made us differently. Like, the man is meant to provide, especially financially. And yes, he is supposed to care for his wife and like see to her needs and to the family's needs. But his brain is oftentimes going to be thinking about, how can I financially provide for my family? And that is forethought, but it tends to be in a financial way. And then women get annoyed and guilty of being like, well, why don't you think about this and think about this and think about this? When like, we see that part of the women's role is to think ahead for the betterment of the family, to think ahead for things that could go wrong. And just because your husband doesn't think that way doesn't mean that he's wrong or that he's dumb or that he's, operating incorrectly. It may just be a situation where it's like, I think that God just made us that way. Of like, every woman that I know is really good at that, at like looking ahead and filling in the blanks and taking care of things. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't feel safe in our relationships or like know that like the husband or the man of the household is going to be able to take care of us. But there is a level. I'm not saying that it is 100% or that women need to take care of everything, because I think that gets abused and that women are taken advantage of in families a lot of the time. and that men don't carry enough mental load. I see that a lot. I'm not saying that that's not bad. It is. But I am saying there is a level in a healthy relationship where like the man is supposed to be taking care of all of the financial things, and he should be able to take care of it to a level to where the women don't worry, and be able to like, there is a reason that we have roles. I still pay some of our bills. I still like manage my own paychecks because I like to and I want to. I like keeping track of that. Doesn't mean that I can't, or that my husband is incapable of doing that. He's totally capable. I just like doing it. So there's levels of that where it's like you can do what you want. There isn't things that like he has to do and you have to do. But there is a mental disposition that we are created to be like. And part of that is that women are really good at thinking ahead to prepare and provide for the family. And that's good. And it doesn't mean, I just think people get caught up and are like, well, I shouldn't have to do this. Like my husband should be just as good at this as me. But we're created differently, and that's okay. And that's good. And it's the sooner you recognize that, the easier your marriage will be, the easier being a Proverbs 31 wife is going to be. So I really hope that made sense. I'm going to just reiterate. Not good when a man is incompetent and incapable of taking care of things. He should be able to take care of things to a level where his wife feels safe and secure to not have to worry about everything. But there is a level of which women are naturally better and naturally created to think ahead to take care of the family, and that's a good thing. And there are roles that we are supposed to play, and there's some overlap, but generally there are some roles that we're supposed to play that make together a way to serve each other and to correct and encourage and challenge each other to where the marriage works well. So, is SJ wrong for saying that? Absolutely not. She can do whatever she wants. And people need to chill out in the comments, okay? It's just sad to me that like women feel the need to comment on TikTok or Instagram and be like, you're not allowed to do this as a wife, or like, you're a bad wife for doing this. Let people serve their husbands the way they want to serve their husbands. And like, can we just all encourage each other, please? If you're a wife and like have other ways that maybe are a little more out of the box, or like ways that you serve your husband and are a Proverbs 31 wife, like something that maybe I didn't mention or wouldn't think of, like I would love to hear in the comments what you think. And let's all just be a lot more encouraging to each other online.